We're recording. So, can you give me a little bit of information about how many of these sessions you've seen before and how familiar you are with my approach to typing?
I would say I probably saw or have seen about 70% of yours that you posted. Um, so I'd say more familiar overall, or like
Okay.
most impressions before.
Okay, cool. Can you do for me the SI demonstration of a sequence of insignificant events for the last few hours prior to joining this conversation?
Yes, let me hold on a second. um, I think it'll be a little bit easier, less of a headache for me because it's kind of a little bit more mundane. But probably just studying um, nursing classes for the last couple hours, um, and eating dinner, which just was two tuna sandwiches. So that's essentially basically the only thing of note that I did.
Okay, what'd you eat for breakfast?
Um, I forgot to eat breakfast.
Okay. Did you eat lunch?
No.
You forgot to eat breakfast and lunch.
Yeah, I just wasn't hungry, so I just didn't eat.
Er,
And I was kind of busy, so I just kind of forgot about it.
Okay. Um, how many hours of sleep do you need a night, do you think, on average?
I only know that it's kind of on the higher end, but I'm not even entirely sure as to exactly what it would be. Because I usually oversleep or undersleep. Like I could really get the like perfect amount.
Okay. Um, they say that there are like something like six different basic sleeping patterns that people have. Mine, for example, is I tend to get sleepy in the afternoon around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and about 12 hours later around 2 o'clock in the morning. If not knowing any particular thing about the official kinds of sleeping patterns, if you were to describe your typical times of tiredness and wakefulness, what would they be?
Um, I would say obviously, like most people, when I first get up, probably in the early afternoon, and also in the evening. So I usually have to take a nap at some points, or I'm very inclined to. Um, And then I'd say towards nighttime when you think I wouldn't be tired, I'm kind of more energetic, where I definitely can realize like maybe to 2 o'clock in the morning if I need to, like do work.
Yeah, bedtime is not a sleepy time for me usually. Like 10 or 11 o'clock, where you think it's a good time to go to bed. It's like I just find myself not really very sleepy right then, I guess. Okay. If um, if you were going to buy a brand new car and it was a prize from a game show, you get any kind of car you wanted. The game show is going to pay for the car in full and insurance for a year. So there's zero cost to you owning this car, no matter how fancy it is. They're also going to pay for any like oil changes and stuff for a couple of years. So you don't have to worry about if you want like a Lamborghini. You don't have to think, yeah, but oil changes are $20,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you could get any kind of car at all, what would it be?
But you said they're gonna pay for the car in full,
They're going to pay
essentially.
for everything, yeah. So what I'm saying is, you want a car, you're allowed to choose any car in the world, and whatever car it is, the game show is going to pay all the expenses associated with the car for 2 years.
Maybe just the most expensive car plausible.
Okay, so and the reason being, then at the end of the 2 years, you're going to resell it, or
Yeah, so I could probably just resell it and then buy something like maybe more economical that I maybe would use. That's probably long lasting. So I'd get a profit and I would probably just have something that would last a long time.
okay. What if the deal is though instead they're going to lease you a car and they're going to pay all the expenses for a few years, and that's it. You're not going to own anything at the end of it. What would you choose?
Well, if they're still paying all the costs associated with leasing, I guess a car that's not. I don't think, given that I live in like a crowded city, probably a car that's more easier to find parking. So probably not very big or not like a truck. But something that's very good on gas, like maybe like a hybrid. I would say,
Prius.
yeah, probably would.
You win any car in the world and you pick a Prius.
I actually don't know cars, but that sounds familiar every time. So I'm like, okay, I'll go with that.
Okay. So, uh, do you watch any sports?
No, they bore me too much.
Okay. When you do you watch? Is there any kind of show or thing that you like to watch that you have to see it live, so you have to endure the commercials, or is everything you watch something that you don't need to endure the commercials for?
Mm. Yeah, I can't say there's anything of note that I have to watch live. It's usually just recordings, or I can never take it or leave it. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Generally, I'd say probably sports are the only thing that your broadcast TV things can guarantee people are gonna be willing to sit through commercials to watch. You know.
Yeah.
Okay. So, did you ever play any sports?
Um, yeah, because I kind of went to a high school where they forced you to play sports to like meet college requirements.
Mm.
So
For
um,
forced athleticism, that's the
yeah.
best kind. What were you forced to play?
Um, well, I kind of tried out a variety of things, so I wasn't really sure what I was good at or what I was inclined to do because I just typically didn't like sports. I didn't really care for the competitive aspect of it in the sense that I could care less if we win or not. And obviously, I think when people are younger, like winning's all they care about, and they kind of make fun of other people, belittle others. So it's just like, I don't want any part of that. So preferably a sport where it's not I don't have to rely too much on a team. So maybe like cross country, or to where like if I do suck or I'm not that good, I won't get made fun of, I won't get belittled, or who cares. So cross country, and then maybe after that, it was more like powerlifting. It's something that kind of continued afterwards, just for health reasons. So
So, do you work out now?
yeah.
And is it at a gym or is it like like run down, jogging down the street with weights in your hands or what?
To me, the most effective way, at least in terms of my own body like type, is like lifting weights, like especially like heavy lifting, like say squats, bench, or deadlift. It kind of needs to be at a gym, and so I kind of like do like more of the like powerlifting type stuff. I do at competitions.
So you're not super cardio.
I ignore cardio probably
Hmm.
pretty heavily.
Hey, me too. Okay, so are you doing these exercises because you like the way they make you look physically, or because you like the way it makes you feel after you're done doing the exercises, or because it's healthy, or some other reason?
Um, okay, I can't say I don't hate it as much as I used to. So I can't say I'm like most people. It's like, oh, you just try it for a little bit. Once you get in the routine, you'll start loving it. And it's bullshit. I've never had that, so I can't say I particularly love it. I've kind of been partial to it. I do like the way that makes me look because I know people, whether they're honest or not, are very vain when it comes to appearance, and so I don't really want that to be a factor. That's more within my control that I can influence people. And so I'm like, okay, I have the discipline to at least make myself look stereotypically good, so I will.
So then people can come up to you and say, "Hey, nice muscles."
Yeah, or they'll just be, or like say when you're in a relationship or whatever, like people, especially men, which I say I'm attracted to, they're always usually primarily attracted to like the physical first, and so it's like okay, then I don't want to be attracted because of that. So I'll just put on like this shell of like what I think other people would want, and that's kind of what I do.
Gee, I've always thought I might secretly be a woman because until I got with Rachel, I always deprioritized looks, thinking, "Aha, I'm going to be smart and deprioritize that, and therefore get more of other stuff that's more important or something." It didn't really work out very well. But anyway, okay. I've been told also by a tarot reader that in most of my past lives, I was a woman. So
So do
I,
you feel connected to your
I,
femininity?
I do absolutely. When I heard that, I thought that sounds so true to me. Anyway, okay, so let's talk about kinds of television shows or movies that you are interested in watching, and kinds that you just go like either boring or dumb or cringy or whatever, and change the channel right away.
Um, I would say the typical overplayed stuff, like say The Office or like stuff like that. I'm usually like, okay, that's kind of ingrained to the point where everyone watches it or memes about it. To where when I hear the theme song, I already get annoyed. So I don't say like stereotypical shows like that as part of enjoyment. Um, Only recently because one of my friends is very into it. So I'll watch drama because they like watching drama, and I can tolerate it for a certain amount of time.
What do you mean by drama? Do you mean like
Like
Hamlet?
like shows that I would say like gossipy modern drama, like kind of Kardashian level drama. Which normally I just feel like, okay, I can't really watch that on my own, but I'll watch it with somebody else, if not just to like make fun of the
Mm-hmm.
ridiculousness of it and how people are kind of idiotic or what they value, just it's very superficial.
Are you
Um,
interested in the new upcoming uh, re 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 re-arrival of The Hills to MTV? You know, The Hills is coming back with a new season on MTV.
I don't think I've ever heard of it.
The Hills is the one that had that couple where that lady got so much plastic surgery, and the other guy, I forget what his name was. I don't know. It's the equivalent of like Housewives of Orange County, but with was originally with like late teenagers, early 20s instead of housewife age people.
Oh, speaking of plastic surgery, have you ever seen the show called Botch, where it's like they've got plastic surgery, but it's very like
I
messed up or like
I'm
terrible?
familiar with the show. I've never watched it because I couldn't possibly stand to watch it. But go ahead, tell me about it. What is that
But
something
that's
you
basically the
like?
premise of it. So it's just kind of like, okay, these people got these plastic surgery, expecting it to like to them look better, or because I guess also I think a lot of these people initially have like body dysmorphia or something like that, so they look kind of normal by most people's standards or like good, but they kind of fixate on this one part.
Uh huh.
So they get it done and it ends up being like they say like in India, it ends up being like terrible. So then they have to get it fixed. And so they end up looking worse than what they started out with, essentially.
Right. Right. So would you be opposed yourself to ever getting any plastic surgery?
Um I don't think the risk associated with it is worth it, and plus the enormous amount of cost in the sense that I don't even trust when I say I go to a plastic surgeon, they'll probably try to sell you or like diminish your confidence to sell you more. And so I kind of see past that. Well, I kind of see through that sauce. I'm like, just nah, I'm good.
What about Botoxing your lips?
I think that looks terrible, and I should not judge people that do it, but I do it. But it's bad.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts on the, I guess not so common anymore, but until recent years, fairly common trend of putting those large things in your ear holes to make them
Oh my
into.
god. Okay, that looks so terrible when you take it out, and just yeah, that's terrible. Like I think people that do that just don't know how they look like to other people, because most people I would say as a whole probably hate it or think it looks disgusting. But if that really makes them happy, and you know what, they should just go for it. But it's not very professional looking though. So I would say if you work in like the medical field or not, you shouldn't have ears like stretched out the wazoo. Like that just looks ridiculous.
It's not people who do it typically are not thinking ahead to when they're 45 or 50 years old. You know, I guess. Uh, okay, so how do you feel emotionally right now?
Um, Maybe like emotionally neutral per se, neither here nor there.
Okay. Um, when you're not feeling emotionally neutral, is it usually because something exciting is happening and you're like, hooray? Or is it because something distressing is happening and you're like, boo?
Um, I don't know. I would say like those maybe like would influence my mood relatively minimally. It's more so like the people around me or the people I choose to surround myself with, like their moods. Maybe like if I'm around like grouchy people, then I become kind of that very easily translates to me becoming grouchy back or like in a bad mood.
Okay.
Um,
Uh,
yeah.
so what's your what's your temperature at your house at right now?
Because I live with roommates, I think it's at 78. Last time I checked, it was a couple of months ago, and I think they keep it the same around this time of the year.
And have you ever said, you know what, it's too yeah in here. I'm going to change the thermostat.
Maybe not without asking them, because it's okay. I can always like turn on the heater, or because I bought a heater, which I usually use, or turn on the fan. Like I can accommodate myself. That's fine.
Okay. So, how is it determined what the standard temperature is for the house? Who decided that?
I just typically go with what the consensus of what it wants to be.
Okay.
Um, and I don't particularly like strong about it. I'm not gonna bother with something like so fickle to me. So if somebody feels really like, I live with a very how should I put this? Stereotypically Californian sorority girlish person who's very type A and just I don't know, just basically I let her control it. And it's like just screw it. I don't want to deal with you, so you can just control it and you can make the decisions. It's fine.
Cool. Um, okay. Do you remember this past Christmas?
Um, Vaguely.
Do you remember any gifts that you got for anybody or any gifts that you received?
I got cologne only because I use it every day. Because it lasts forever.
What flavor cologne did you get?
I don't know the flavor.
I
I
mean,
never bothered to look. It just smells nice. I don't know the brand either.
you
And
don't even know the brand of it, huh? Okay.
it's really sad, but yeah.
All right. Uh, can you break um can you break building a suspension bridge into exactly 4 steps?
Okay, so I'm not too educated on this, so I'll give it my best shot. So I assume that you figure out the geometry of like how you want to stabilize it, or whatever. So you basically make a plan or like a blueprint. You get the materials. You build the bridge according to the blueprint, or you hire people, I suppose, and you build the bridge according to the blueprint. So one, two, three, four.
Okay. Pretty good. What's the proper number of steps to break pulling a bong rip down into? Or let me rephrase this question. Is it more proper to break pulling a bong rip down into 3 steps, 4 steps, or 5 steps?
Okay.
And why?
Just quick question: what's a bong rip?
A bong rip is this is a bong. And I will do the task right now, okay, and then you can tell me
Okay.
the answer.
Okay. So essentially, like the process of smoking a bong is that basically
Yeah, pulling a bong rip, right?
okay? So I would say check to see how much weed is inside, whether you need to clean it or add more weed or whatever.
Okay, but I asked, what's the proper number of steps? 3, 4, or 5, and why?
Okay. I'm not gonna say five because that's probably being the most thorough with respect to the amount of steps needed.
I think the correct answer is 4. Pack the bowl, light the bowl, pull the bowl, exhale.
Okay, but what about if the bowl like there's like just remnants left, or like somebody didn't clean the bowl? Like, would you clean it first or inspect it,
Um,
or add
I,
weed to it?
I mean that would be a reasonable thing to do. Like, you could make step 1 this, right? But I think, in other words, the proper number is 4 because it doesn't have to presume anything. So with 5, you've got to presume that the bowl's not clean already, or that it's not ready to smoke out of. You have to do something to prepare the bong to smoke out of. 3 steps would ignore the fact that you have to exhale the bong rip as part of the process. You'd just be saying like pack, ignite, spark it, and then pull. So that would be 3 steps. It would be maybe the most intuitive way to break it down. Well, it's just a 3-step process: pack, spark, and pull. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. But really, if you want to be, I think, accurately describe it, 4th one. 5 would be just taking a single step and arbitrarily breaking it into 2 steps, maybe, or something, or adding a precondition like you did. Regardless, what am I testing for when I ask that? Just to verify that you know where I'm going with these things. As I believe.
TE?
Yeah. Okay. When something breaks around the house, let's say your window is stuck, it won't open, and you have to always go, and then it'll open finally, and then every time it's like that. Will you ever fix it, or you just leave it like that forever?
As long as nothing else happens to it to where it'll no longer open. Like, it doesn't matter how much effort or how long it takes, as long as it still works, then I'll leave it like that.
Yeah.
So,
If Do you have a piece of furniture anywhere in your house that you frequently go, oh, I must have gotten this bruise from banging into that again?
can't say I do.
Okay. Do you know where, like, do you own a large amount of small objects?
No.
Okay. Do you purposefully try not to gather too many objects?
Yeah, because I don't really see the point of it. I don't want to be overly frivolous or like have a lot of pointless items I'm not throwing away anyways. Sometimes like I'll just keep the essentials or like stuff I'll definitely be using or that's practical to have. I don't know.
Okay. There's this symposium of single women, usually between ages 38 and 45, and it's about you know how to deal with dating realities as an older single woman. And the symposium host, who's got this whole curriculum all ready to go for these women, has come down sick suddenly with irritable bowel syndrome, and he's asked you to fill in for him today. And you're going to make a lot of money all at once, so you go, okay, fine. Now, unfortunately, he doesn't leave you any materials or anything, so you just got to wing it. Now, get up there and start teaching those women what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Teach us. Teach us aging women what to do in the dating market.
Okay, so part of me wants to be like, should I do what I should do or like give my honest, I guess, okay, let me think about it for a second. If I should be authentic or kind of a little fake. How do I know any details of whether this person or how they presented in the past? Like what kind of person they are?
Well, you've seen one of their videos, okay, and you noticed that in the video, he gets up there at first and he's walking back and forth across the stage and he's saying, "How many of you here have put a lot of effort into looking for the right partner, only to have it blow up in your face time and time again? Am I right, ladies?" They're all raising their hands. And then you notice that he's got this, like PowerPoint thing where basically his 3 main bullet points that he discusses are be confident in yourself, remember to have low expectations, and you're never gonna find the right pony without riding a whole cavalry's worth.
Right. Okay.
And basically,
So,
he just bullshits in between. That's his whole
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Let me see. Okay, so obviously it's gonna be the fake one. So I'd be like, okay, I'll probably get something similar to him. Like, okay, ladies, so are we tired about men who act like man babies? There's probably some joke about like how men are incompetent or like men who don't grow up. Or how they expect women to stereotypically do the female like chores or whatever. So you can probably throw some pictures about that. Or like how many of you, when you dated, had to do all the laundry, or like have men who couldn't even wipe down a toilet seat when they peed, or etc.
Woo.
I relate, sister. Yeah, okay.
So what's the solution you give them? What's the genuine advice that you have? If you were to have genuine advice to give and say, look, this guy that you hired here, he's actually just a bullshitter. Here's the truth, ladies. What would your advice be? Ah, Rachel.
Sorry.
It's like that's.
Earthquake.
It's like I was watching it, and you were right. You did it. You saw it, and then you stepped over it. And why would you not? Never mind. Um. Okay. Uh. Let's say, what was I just at? What did I ask you a second
Like
ago?
you said, like what would I do if I was wanting to be real or authentic with these
Oh
women,
yeah,
like,
right.
and screw the bullshit or like cheesy stuff?
Yeah.
I'd be like, first of all, stop looking for a relationship, because if usually statistically you find a partner when you actually stop looking or stop caring or stop desiring or stop basically being so desperate that your standards become low or pathetically low and you don't even see your own worth. So stop trying to chase after this relationship, or don't automatically assume that you need somebody. That way you won't settle, or you won't be with somebody where in the end you're just going to get divorced, or because they make you this miserable, or don't even live up to your expectations,
So
which this guy has told you.
don't
Like,
settle is to sum up. Your first piece of advice is don't settle.
don't
Right.
settle, at least I would say as a whole, because some relationships, I think all relationships, we settle a little bit because no one finds the perfect match all around. But like, don't set the bar. Like, here the bar right here. I want the person to at least meet this bar. Don't be like this. Like, they met this. You know what? That's good enough. Like, don't change the bar that you have for your
Okay.
expectations, or like what you want your reality to be.
And let's say you're talking to a group of people who are in relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and your job is to convey to them how to determine if their relationship is good enough to stay in or not.
Like long term.
Yeah, so like everybody in the room, they
Mm-hmm.
don't know this is why they've come here. They didn't come here for this purpose, so you can't glean any information from the fact that they're here. But everybody in this room is in a relationship, and you're trying to explain to them, give them like a checklist or something that they can go apply to their own relationship, and if results are yeah, they should leave, and if results are yeah, that's a good relationship and you should stay.
Okay. Well, first of all, I get the impression that they should be able to emotionally and mentally be able to confide or lean on their partner. If that doesn't work, then the partner's not really worth it. Or literally, then the question begs, then you can beg the question: are they just with them for the physical aspect of it, or just to have somebody like a fuck toy or a sex toy or a sex doll? So I would say if you can't rely on them or treat them like as you would, since a relationship is kind of like this circle, like the deepest part of the circle. Like, if you can't be yourself without a mask or a costume or the facade that we put on in everyday life, then you really shouldn't be with them. Or if they can't handle that aspect of you, like the true you, whatever that may be. Um,
How much mask do you think people put on in general? Like, do you say that? Would you say that most of the time people are engaging in the world, they're doing so behind a certain mask?
yeah, behind many masks. They might be a rare certain mask, but I think even people think they're being vulnerable, they're still like, if being vulnerable is being naked, they might still be wearing at most or at least their undergarments and being like, I'm completely vulnerable. There's nothing else I can basically do. Like, people, I don't think people can really be exceptionally vulnerable, like the most vulnerable of the vulnerable things. Like, people just don't want to do it, or it's exceptionally hard to do.
Hmm.
Or the vulnerable aspects of ourselves, or that part, if it's easy to like confide in, like say I used to be um, I don't know, like low confidence. I had a big forehead. So if I'm okay with that now, then I won't say it's like really vulnerable anymore, since you shared it a lot with other people. So it's that part of you that you don't want to share with others still, or like almost like ever. Like, that's hence the vulnerability part. So it's like, for instance, for myself, like I'll always give the facade of being vulnerable. Like, tell people like maybe some backstory of mine that I'm perfectly fine with, just so they'll be vulnerable back, like to me.
Oh, that's funny. I haven't said it in a long time, but I used to cite that precise behavior as the example of sort of the textbook INFJ move, which is to say, it's It's this thing. It's this thing where it's like INFJs would like to always be the person who's deciding in a vacuum, right? So it's like an INFJ will go, okay, I need to know you at your most relaxed so I can know you, and then I'll decide if I like you, and if I do, then you get to know me. Right?
Yeah.
It's very affection colonialism or something.
Hmm. I'll
Like,
look into that probably.
okay, so regardless, let's talk about a little bit of TI stuff. Can you discuss your thoughts on fairness and kindness, respectively?
Um, like what it means, or
What they mean, how they play roles in your life, how you use them to value or devalue things, etc.
I would say fairness. Is like treating everyone the same, not giving leniency to like circumstances, or like because you're sympathy or because you're emotionally connected to them, or any of the almost like being more objective. Um, Fairness versus kindness, you said? Okay. Kindness is kind of being more empathetic, maybe more relating to the other person, demonstrating compassion, mercy, per se. It's like say you're in a court case and the person is a single mother who, I don't know, committed multiple robberies to feed her children. I think the more merciful approach would be like, okay, she was doing it for more altruistic reasons, so we should be more lenient. The fairness approach would be, okay, let's not even factor that in. She did this crime. This is the systemized punishment for that. So I think it's good to have like a balance of both. Like I try to be more
Okay, but what if we
empathetic.
have a single mother with several children who commits a series of rapes
Mm-hmm.
to feed her children?
Was she emotionally damaged or something like that? Anyway,
Well,
I
she
mean probably, but
she's definitely damaged insofar that she seems to believe that raping people feeds her children. So
like that's the only way.
I'm just pointing out that if you, it's like the only crime that people ever talk about as being justified by things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is robbery. If you try to apply it to other crimes, it sounds ridiculous, right? Like,
Or killing somebody, I guess, would work too. Like in self defense, or to save some more people, like killing one person.
right. So yeah, people will use that kind of that for philosophical examples, but I think it's kind of revealing to use rape as a crime because then it's whatever your various justifications are, it's sort of revelatory of how irrelevant the justifications are in the case of certain crimes because everybody's got justifications like
Mm-hmm.
I need to feed my kids. Well, I really needed to bust a nut, right? So it's like,
But then one's more like altruistic, one's more like kind of selfish. Like,
I mean, the ones that are presumably altruistic, they're only altruistic if you don't include any context, right?
right.
So what happened is I took our monthly money that I should be spending on food for the kids, and I spent it all on crack. So now I don't have any food to feed the kids, so I have to rob the store for food. Well, we didn't include that first part. It's just a poor woman who needs to rob a store for food for her to feed her kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the first part's relevant too, as to why it is that she needs to rob the store to feed her kids. You have to consider, like, you know, that.
Substance use disorder, maybe. Like
Well,
she's
I'm just saying, you have to consider what her her other options were prior to this moment of having no other options.
mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's just like um, I guess only focusing on one little teeny part of it or something. Anyway, regardless. Okay, let me ask you some TI questions that are skills based then. Uh, can you tell me who my father's only son's wife's sister is in relationship to me. My father's wife's only son's sister in relation to me.
Aunt?
Did you say aunt?
Wait, father's father, grandfather, only son, so father, wife's
Sister. Father's wife's only son's sister.
father's wife's only sister.
Only son's sister. Father's wife's only son's sister.
Father's father, grandfather, wife's father. Yeah, I'm gonna have to draw it out, like a family tree or something.
What did you say at first? Aunt?
Yeah, but I think that's wrong. Or at
No,
least
that's correct.
okay.
But except, well, it's not quite correct. The correct answer is actually aunt, but I'll accept aunt as well. So that's interesting. So you and I knew the answer right away, and when you tried to TI, you didn't trust your TI very much. Let's try another kind of TI question. If a leaf is only a leaf if it someday turns yellow, is a green banana a leaf?
If it someday turns yellow, but I guess I don't know.
Bananas do some green bananas do someday turn yellow. Okay, now the question is this: if a leaf is only a leaf if it someday turns yellow, and given that a green banana will someday turn yellow, is it the case that a banana is a leaf?
No.
Correct. If all fish swim, and I swim, am I a fish?
No. Or you don't know, because it could be something else that swims.
Right. Okay. If only pigs oink and I oink, am I a pig?
Yes.
Okay. So imagine you wake up, have no idea how you go to sleep tonight regular, honk woo, and you wake up, you're in a different place. You have no idea how you got there. This place that you're in now is it's a room with some windows, and it's got a door, but there's no knob on this side, so you could when you push on it, there's no give. You can't pull because there's nothing to pull on, and the slits around the door are very 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 small slits, so you can't put your finger into it. Now there's a couple of windows that are fairly high up on the wall, and there's the dresser drawers, and what do you do?
At first, I scout my surroundings, so I look outside the window. How high is it? Like the building itself. Like if I were to jump out the window, is that plausible?
Okay, well, you can't see out the windows because they're too high up.
Okay, so it's high up and I can't see out of it.
Correct.
I would check the drawer or like check the room to see if there's any resources I could probably use.
Okay, you could move the dresser drawers over so that you stand on top of that. You can see out the window.
Okay. Are there any people around, or do I see?
You look out the window. You're at the top of a very tall tower. You're like at the bulb of a tower, kind of, because when you look out the window, you can't see the wall, but you could see a curved thing go down, and you can't see the wall until like very close to the bottom, where you can start to see it a little bit because of the angle of your view. Anyway, and it's too high to jump. Now, what you see around this tower is a beach, a deserted beach area with like coconut trees and tropical winds and stuff, but no people. You don't see any people at the moment, anyway. And then there's the ocean. You don't see any boats at the moment.
What's the weather like?
It's very pleasant. It's 79,
Nice.
low humidity.
So at least it's plausible that people could technically come to the beach, and so that is actually decent. So I might have that as like a option in the back of my head. Okay, the weather's nice, so there might be people. There could be a chance for people to like possibly walk by. And you hear me if I were to yell, for instance, or something like that. If I'm in the bowl of the tower, hopefully it's able to project a little further if I'm really high up. Or I don't know how that works. I'll try it at the very least. Um, Let me see. And you said I could look out, like there's a little slit that I can see
Well,
the door.
you said you were checking for resources. There's additionally a pen and a book inside the dresser drawers. The book, it's Tales of Tales of Julie Newmar and her Quintet of Helpers is the title of the book, and it's full of stories about a character named Julie Newmar who's not related to the actress at all, just coincidentally has the same name. And
Julie
there's
Newmar and her helpers, basically.
Julie Newmar and her Quintet of Helpers.
Were these helpers forced to be helpers in the book?
Would you like to read the whole book?
Is there like in the back of the book? Is there like a brief synopsis or like abstract of like
Well,
what
you turn to
happens?
the last page, and and uh, it's the last paragraph is uh, Joni. Joni stood and wept. Finally, it was over. Around her lay scattered the four bodies of her beloved sisters, all slaughtered by Julie Newmar. But the bottom of her boot heel stomped down on the dead Newmar's face. Finally, it was over. That's how it ends.
Okay, so there's some cheesy rendition of a book in real life. I probably can't think that it'll have a good ending. Noted. Maybe.
Also, in
What is?
addition to the book, you got a Sharpie. That's your pen. You got a Sharpie.
Can I like realistically write the Sharpie on anything aside from the book, like maybe a wall or something like that? Is that
You
a good
could
idea?
write on the wall with the Sharpie, if you'd like to. I don't know what you're gonna.
Would it come off the wall?
Well, I guess it depends how hard you clean.
If it couldn't come off the wall, then maybe I could leave just in case I were to die, like something of a sign that like something wasn't right here. If someone
Wait,
else were to find it.
so you're preparing for your death already?
Just in case, just in case. Just in case, so no, this
You
doesn't happen to
could
anybody
do
else,
that.
or like I don't know.
I mean, yes, it's true. You could leave things on the wall. It looks like it's been freshly painted. You muse perhaps the last person who found themselves here had written things on the wall and it just gotten painted over.
Hmm. Okay, so Sharpie window that I can barely see out of. Book ominous ending. What about the door? Anything particular about the door? Like you said, I could barely see out of it.
No, it's like a door that if you don't look carefully, you wouldn't even notice there. It looks like just part of the wall. That's how very narrow the slits around it are. And the thing is, it appears to be a door that pushes into the room. In other words, you'd need to pull it to open it, but there's nothing to grab onto to pull. There's
Oh, so
no
that means if somebody comes in, they have to like push it on their
right.
end.
They push it to come in, and you're not sure if it's even locked because you can't get any purchase on it. It's like stainless steel wall, basically. It's like you can't. There's no way to grab the door, and you can't fit any of your fingers underneath it.
Guess I have a couple options here. So I could either strategically position myself to where I could ambush them if somebody were to come, like push open the door. But I don't want to bank solely on that because what if nobody comes? So I might bank on the weather and try to yell out the window, or at least try to guard somebody's attention, so maybe I can get outside help. Maybe trying that for a little bit, but kind of progressively doing that for like a couple seconds, going back to the door, waiting to see if anyone comes. Like I guess, like pushes in, and then try to like I guess like counter them there.
Okay. let's try to do this commonality thing. I'm going to give you three disparate items, and I'd like you to come up with some way in which something they have in common, basically. So, a starfish, um, leather working, and the People's Republic of China.
Assuming starfish are in China, they're all in China. Like the
Okay. Um, I think I don't think that being in China is a is a
like
set that
like
China has. I don't think China
the
itself fits
China, the
into a
beach of
set.
China, maybe with like leather workers doing whatever horror stories we hear in the U.S. about like I don't know, like labor,
Okay.
whatever.
How about amethyst gemstone,
Okay.
uh, horror movie, and um, uh, swamp.
The gems in the swamp, and it's a premise of a horror movie. I don't know.
Okay. They all evoke the magic of moisture. That's a tough one. Purple. Amethyst is purple, you know. So, okay. Uh, I want you to. I'm going to give you three ideas, and I want you to pretend that I am a producer in, and you've caught me in the elevator, and you've got to give me an elevator pitch about this great movie idea you have, but it's got to be built around these three things that I give you. Okay.
Okay.
So, the main character is is a professional ventriloquist with a pet elephant. That there's a some sort of problem involving Antarctica, and that the love interest is not of this earth. Now, pitch me your movie.
Okay. Ventriloquist, love interest, not of this earth. What
Pet
else was
ele-
it?
pet elephant,
Elephant.
and there's a problem. The key problem somewhere in the movie has something to do with Antarctica.
Okay, she's in Antarctica. Obviously, I think it'd be easiest to make her kind of um, what's the word I'm looking for? Mentally unstable, which is why she thinks that her love interest is in all this world. So maybe she thinks it's an alien. Maybe she thinks it's like she's destined to find
She's the
somebody.
love interest. The
What?
main character is a guy who's a ventriloquist with an elephant as a pet. Okay, now at some point in the movie, there's a love interest, and this love interest is not of this world, not of this earth, which could mean a variety of things. And then the other thing is the key plot problem centers around something to do with Antarctica.
Okay. First off, I'll say I'm sorry. I had trouble keeping up with the details, but uh, okay. So if it has something to do with Antarctica, that could either be a place where the love interests rendezvous or they meet, or it could be where one of them's from, or it has to be some plot point. Um,
How about they each are spies of two nations that are about to go to war over Antarctica, and
okay.
their love coincides with a shared interest in a peaceful sharing of Antarctica with this other country. But the bigwigs in their countries, they're like, no, we want to go to war because we're greedy capitalist cronies, uh, government swine. Okay, so what happens? Why is she out of this world? Where is she from?
Let's see. Antarctica. I don't know. It'd probably be easy if they're two nations. I would say let's make it plausible that they hate each other. So let's say the Middle East and maybe America. I don't know. America wants to take over Antarctica for some reason. Maybe they find oil there. Maybe something valuable of note is there. Maybe polar bears are like, for some reason you can sell their fur for a ridiculous amount of money. I don't know. There has to be some logical reason I'm sure I can make up. Um, why Antarctica would be profitable or a place of interest for nations. So, anyways, America versus the Middle East. Realistically, I'd want to have a bad ending just to showcase the corruptness of the world in general. But let's make it a good ending for the cheesiness of the movie. So the two people probably have to convince. Let's make them moderate status. That way, it's not completely illogical or not likely that they could possibly influence their nations to maybe humanize the other nation or like try to come with some peaceful compromise, which is the goal. So maybe mid status to where they could possibly convince power hungry people or corporations um, to not take over Antarctica and not share it with
Would
someone.
people in your life generally describe you as, when they engage with you, are they likely to walk away and say he's a pretty extroverted guy, or likely to walk away and say he's not that extroverted of a person? In the colloquial sense, not in any sort of MBTI sense.
Um, like the average person.
Yeah.
I'd say you kind of like get people from both parties. People that think I'm a mute or very quiet. People that think I'm very talkative.
Would your housemates conclude that you're more introverted than them or less introverted than them?
More because I know that I won't get along with them, or like we probably won't be good, or I don't deem them as good people, so I don't communicate with them. So I just prefer just to be quiet.
I see. Okay. When engaging with people, do you feel like they're generally responsive to cues regarding your boundaries, or do you find that you periodically have to make your boundaries more explicit than you'd like to have to make them?
I would say me as a whole is willing to throw away a lot of boundaries that I technically should maintain before I kind of push back. So I would say I pretty much have to reinforce it because I'm willing to bend or like act like I don't have any boundaries and they pretty much cross one. But I won't bound it. Okay, well I shouldn't get mad at them because I didn't tell them it was a boundary, but yet they crossed it. So and I don't want to hurt their feelings and being like, hey, what you said was, or what you're kind of an asshole. I'm like, okay, well, you know what, you kind of hurt me a little bit. I didn't appreciate it since you did. And yeah,
So
that's
you're likely to self critique as too agreeable, not too thorny.
yeah.
Okay. Um. So what do you like to create or do? That's like some sort of hobby. Could be anything from puttering in the garden to knitting sweaters to writing music to I don't know, like rearranging your house or something. Those kind of things.
Um, can't say I write, do music, or knit. Those things sound stressful and kind of I don't know, more stress than relieving.
You ever draw pictures?
No. Maybe like doodle in class, but that's only because I can't really already know
Right.
the information, so it's like why pay attention. Plus, I'm not even a drawer. If I know that I'm like, it'll take so much effort for me to become a decent drawer, then I'm not going to put effort towards it. So I don't see it amounting to anything.
Do you have career goals and stuff?
Yeah.
What would you like to do in life?
I'd say I probably want to be like a psychiatric nurse practitioner.
Mm.
Maybe specializing in, since I struggled in the past with like say eating disorders like that, maybe like specializing in like eating disorders or like illnesses not widely understood. So I can at least use like any negative cards or experiences in the past for like good, but like make it some positive purpose.
Right. Okay. Um, and do you find, in general, the subject matter of psychiatry and psychology sufficiently interesting to be worth the various educational hoops that are required to be jumped through?
Yeah. even though the hoops are a little annoying. I mean, I think it's worth it in the end. Or at least I feel like I'll be making a difference in at least a job that I have. I don't want it to be like a job that I don't feel like I'm being impactful, or like if I die, I'll be like I'm proud of what I did. Like it has to be some type of meaning. So I think like I don't know, that feels meaningful to me.
Well, I gotta say that when I think of hugely impactful people that I've experienced in my life, the first one that comes to mind is Rachel's psychiatrist. Because I mean, he made a massive difference just by prescribing the right drugs. You know, it's like it didn't require him a whole lot of effort, but having the right piece of knowledge at the right time for the right person can make a huge difference. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I've tested pretty much everything I think that I can. Mm, tell me your relationship with utility and people in your lives. So people in your life, like so. When you think of people, do you consider amongst as you're thinking about them the ways in which they are useful to you?
Um, yeah, but also the ways in which I'm useful to them. Like I don't think I necessarily have to get something from people if I can also like even if I get a lot less than I give, they still might be able to keep you around if they're a good person. So I
Okay.
say that's a factor, but not a good primary factor.
You've watched a fair amount of typing sessions. Where have I inadequately addressed the function splay in this typing session?
Hmm. I mean, I think you addressed all of them. I don't really know which one. Or like,
I feel a little bit like I've underaddressed TE. The thing is, you probably already know that I'm I'm thinking a lot of stuff here consistent with INFJ. I if I were to be I should always think like how where am I giving where are the vulnerable spots in the armor here that I'm going to get attacked from the chat? You know, basically people going, well, you don't really know because you didn't test me out enough. I freaking hate hearing this shit. So I think the thing is, let me double check SI and see, make sure it's not polar. Okay, I don't think it is, but let me make sure. Can you tell me about the last time you went to a restaurant? Which restaurant you went to, and with whom you went, if or by yourself or.
let me think for a second. Yeah, Panera Bread, I think, with my boyfriend.
Okay, Panera. Can you recount any minor insignificant detail that you remember, even though it's not really worth remembering, such as, oh yeah, there was this lady across the way, and she had this child that kept squirming, and she was telling him to stay still, or the waitress dropped a plate and it broke, something like that.
No, the only thing I remember because it was unique is since they let you get your own coffee. I don't know how that happened before. So I remember that. That's the only of note thing I remember.
Do you remember any conversation that occurred while you were at Panera?
Just know that it's nothing of note.
Okay. Do you have a specific supermarket that you go to most often?
Um, yeah, whatever's closest to where I live. I don't have to take
Okay.
the bus or anything.
Can you visualize that the space of the supermarket in your head and do you know if you were to go there mentally in sort of a mental field trip to the supermarket, would you be able to locate the coffee?
No.
Would you be able to locate the meats?
Yes.
And would you be able to locate the produce?
Generally, if it's something I have to go there habitually for, then yes.
Okay, well, describe the store to me. Say, like, the meow's on the meow, and the meow's on the
Okay.
meow. And
You go in, snacks and pharmaceutical stuff is on the left. On the right, they have seasonal stuff and random stationary things, and then they have a produce section in the far corner.
Okay. Can you describe your bathroom? Like, what's hanging on the walls in it? Or other decorative things that are just there to make it look more like a bathroom or something? I don't know why people put shit like that up, but...
Yeah, it just has, what's that, a floating shelf
Okay.
there, and a light fixture. And that's kind of it. I haven't really done anything to the bathroom, if that makes sense.
Okay, so are there any pictures on the wall in there? Are you sure?
So I didn't put any pictures on there. I just kept it plain.
Okay, so you have your own bathroom.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was thinking maybe it was a house bathroom. That makes my question irrelevant. Okay, so what's a space in this house that you do share?
Kitchen, living room.
Okay, what's on the walls in the kitchen? Or what kind of pictures are on the walls, if any?
There's one picture of something that I never really cared to look at.
Do you know what it's a picture of?
No.
You don't know what it's a picture of, huh? Okay. Rachel?
Yes.
Do you know what pictures are on the walls in the master bedroom?
Yes.
What pictures are there?
There's a hilltop. There's it's Japanese looking.
Okay. How many of them are there?
3.
Yeah. Okay. What's the other one besides the hill? You said there's 2 more, right? So what's it besides hill?
Oh man. There's 2 little guys in a hat, and they're going up a hill. And there's a house with snow on them, and the other 2 I don't remember.
I don't remember either. And this is the bedroom we sleep. You know, it's like right there. It's not. It's weird how people with SI in different places. I'm sure if you were to ask an SI Dom that question, they would be able to answer it, no problem.
I just think if this helps, I just naturally overlook details like that. Like when I look, it's like I see the picture and I just don't bother looking any in depth at it. Like say the clone I use, it's like I never bothered to look at the brain, so it's like, who cares? I don't know.
I was at the house of Laverne for like 6 or 7 months, and one day I was like, "Hey, where did you get that picture of a cat? You know, when did you put that up?" And she's like, "It's always been there." I was like, "No, it hasn't." Yeah, it has. Ever since you got here, it's been there. I was like, and this is the first time I've even noticed it. And I sit here on this toilet, it's right fucking in front of me. It's just a little bit higher than my normal. I guess it's just not worth noting, right? That's the thing. It's just some picture of a cat that serves no purpose other than to be a picture of a cat.
Like I even had shirts for years that I have that like have a certain like maybe a word on it or something like that. I never bothered to read, and people were like, "Oh, you know what it says?" I'm like, "No." I mean, it's inconsequential.
Okay, so I think you're an INFJ. I would guess you probably thought you were an INFJ when you came in, and that's not a huge surprise to you. Am I correct?
I will say the only thing I struggle with primarily is differentiating between FI and FE. like those two confuse me, and so myself at least. Like I'm always confused when I actually means
Hmm.
or describing
Um.
something.
Okay. Well, when I asked you how you felt, you gave the normal FE answer, which is something along the lines of regular, normal, neutral, something like that. Most FE people give that kind of an answer. It is it the case that as you walk through the world, you're always feeling some sort of emotion, or is it the case that you feel emotions when your norms are upset?
Norms are upset, perhaps.
Okay, so if you ask an ENFP, for example, or possibly an INFP, they will tell you, yes, it is the case that you are always going around feeling emotions. You're always feeling some emotion. Like right now, I'm feeling some emotion. I I it's like I first heard this from a therapist I had, like when I was still drinking. I tried to deal with my alcohol problem with therapy rather than quitting drinking, which didn't work. But anyway, this therapist, we started talking about emotions, and I said, well, I mean, normally I'm not really feeling any emotions, right? And he's like, no, you're always feeling emotions. Everyone's always feeling emotions, except for sociopaths. I'm like, are you sure? if you if it doesn't seem obvious to you that there's always an emotional background to every experience, then you're probably not an FI front stack person. Probably your experience with FI is as you described it, which is you preserve, you try to avoid any need to actually use your own feelings to evaluate things by managing other people's vulnerabilities, and sometimes that means you're a little too agreeable and that your boundaries get crossed. And so to the extent that you're going to have a problem, is that you're going to let your boundaries get crossed and not realize it until later, sort of, rather than be too prickly or defensive and be accused of being too sensitive or something, right? So that's indicative of FE over FI. Would you agree with that? With those assessments of you or descriptions of you?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's a little paradoxical in that I want F5 from people, or I want them to be authentic to me, but I'm not always going to be authentic back, or like I would rather feign authenticity to them.
Right. Well, yeah. The thing is, I think that's one reason why ENTPs and INFJs get along well, is because ENTPs aren't sophisticated enough about their own emotions to hide it very well, whatever they're feeling, and aren't habituated to hiding their emotions. They're typically going to be like, I'm a team player. I'm happy. You should be too. And then if something hurts their feelings, you can kind of tell right away. INFJs typically say the most important thing is for their partner not to lie to them. Would you agree with that? So, for example, if if your partner if your partner's real opinion about the shirt you're wearing is that it's gauche and makes you look uncultured, but you ask him, do you do you really want his loyal support in your fashion choice, or do you want his honest opinion?
Honest opinion.
Okay, so I mean that's probably FE. By the way, there's nothing wrong with your shirt at all. I just picked something random. Yeah, you're FE. The other thing is, this conversation, it's so much like talking to an NIFE person, which is you're a very good listener, and you respond on point. You don't answer questions other than the ones I'm asking, which suggests a TIFE relationship with language. and TI valued pretty highly. The basic difference between FE and FI is FE deals with rendering things into objects that are less sophisticated than FI actual experiences. My being sad is a much more sophisticated event than you noting that I'm sad. So, because FI people get kind of this bullshit reduction towards them because they are using subjective calculi, it's important to remember that the reason it's so difficult for them to just sort of agree with what's TI correct is because they're accustomed to processing shit that doesn't break down like that, namely emotions, where I can be sad and happy and angry and frustrated and relieved all at the same time, you know?
Would you say FI ever like tries to like almost make sense of their emotions, even if they know they don't make sense? Like logicize them almost. Like, okay, why do I feel this? Do I have a good reason to? I don't know. Like, try to like dissect it.
I mean, when I'm dealing with FI questions, I find I have to sit with it a long time, and it makes me silent. In other words, to really deal with FI in and of itself isn't to parse or to think it through. It's to sort of let your own. I have a lot of trouble talking about FI. Even it's it really. All I can say is whenever I'm feeling FI, I fall silent, or when I'm trying even to explore what my feelings are, I fall silent because words get in the way. So I don't know how any FI people deal with that, because for me, any itself seems to interfere with the basic realities of FI, which are non-ideational.
I guess the thing that confuses me the most is people constantly equate like FI to having like strong morals, and just like a part of me is like, well, I have strong morals. I will have certain morals that I will not bend per se. So I guess that kind of had that false assumption that there's morals and I guess authenticity, which I know I kind of maybe
Right.
don't have, or not the best at. It's kind of like, is that what FI is, or is it kind of like
Well,
too reductive?
to the extent that FI links to morality at all, it would link to altruism. So FI people are much more likely to feel as though to be good requires them to do something. Whereas TI people are much more likely to think that to be good requires them to not do something. In other words, good from an FETI perspective is the absence of harm doing, whereas good from the FITE perspective is the promotion of good by doing stuff. Now, the problem is, of course, if you promote the promotion of doing stuff towards good ends by sacrificing the rules of the TI side, which is to say, well, yes, we're going to do some harm to some people, but overall, it's going to have a net benefit. Well, that's what ends up happening when TE TE frames allow FI visions to become manifest in the world. So, it's like TIFE people are more correct about morality for sure than FITE people, but FITE people are more noisy about it. So it's like you'll hear ENFPs, for example, have strong political opinions that are basically, I'm going to ignore. I'm going to. It's basically like, this status quo that I see and point to is not okay. We have to do something about it, and here's something to do about it. So let's do that, without without really any thinking about if that's actually gonna solve the problem, or whether that's going to create unintended consequences, or whether who it's going to harm or how it's going to harm or anything like that. So, you know, yeah.
Okay. And I guess the last question is, it's like, I know INFJs are TE polar, right? So how would that pretty much manifest per se, or like?
Okay, so that's a good question. I appreciate you asking it. I'm not sure I really established you were TE polar here at all. You seem to do a pretty good job of breaking things into steps. Basically, the TE polar would manifest as a conscious disavowal or disapproval of utilitarianism in general. In other words, stop the world should stop making such a fuss about productivity and usefulness when dealing with people. But beneath that, TE is actually an absolute value for an INFJ, which means they themselves very much want to know they are useful, that their life is serving some utility or some purpose, but they don't pay attention within that frame of reference, so they're not trying to solve every problem. When people come to an INFJ for advice, and the reason a lot of people do is because INFJs are good listeners and give sort of holistic, true responses that aren't necessarily trying to solve the person's problem. So you ask a T, like an INTP, ENTP, for you come to them and complain about something. Oh, I don't know what to do. The ENTP will go, well, you should do meow, meow, meow. And if you're not going to do meow, 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 then you should definitely stop complaining about it. Whereas the INFJ will listen, point out some very significant truth that's not explicitly advisory, and the person will feel as though they've been heard, that they've received back from you a comfortable kind of verification that they've been heard without feeling lectured to, and probably will ignore your advice, much to your frustration, only to come back and complain about the same problem again.
Is it possible to like, because I know typically that makes sense to me, but then I also have instances where I'm the complete opposite, where I kind of get tired of like dealing with people's stuff, and I'm like, okay, you know what, just screw everything. We'll just be like very harsh and direct, and like who cares what they think? We'll just tell it like it is for once. Is that like kind of normal per se?
Yeah, I mean, I think INFJs are always three irritations away from this thing. The thing I'm going to say to you right now is going to hurt for years and years. You're going to remember this statement that I'm saying about you, because I'm no longer putting on my I'm no longer employing my FE tool function on the side of harmony, but instead on the side of destroy you. Yeah, ISFJs are incredibly capable of finding and saying the most hurtful thing that a person doesn't want to hear said, but they never really say it unless you really goad them into it, you know?
I think that bothers me about myself in the sense that I think I can really hurt people really well too. I mean, you'll be one of the best at it.
I'm sure you can. I don't doubt that at all. One of the things about being an IDOM is in such stark contrast, like in ESFJs and bipolar, is INFJs respect the permanence of words, and ENTPs do as well, but most types don't get that. They apply more SI than that, and such they have this recency phenomenon, where something you said a year ago, they've forgotten all about it, right? But not ENTPs and INFJs. To the extent that Rachel and I still have arguments, it's typically about something one of us said like 7 months ago or something. So there's a respect for the permanence of the map that is implicit to meta-analysts, which include INFJ and ENTP, INTP, ENFJ.
Just out of curiosity, because I know that, like, say when I get into fights, people like say from months ago. When I recall whatever it was, I can't remember the exact comment, because I know typically a talking point is like, okay, what did I exactly tell you? like, I don't remember that. You said something along the lines of
Right. Right. Along the lines of is exactly right. So from the ENTP remembers it like that by going, okay, well, what you said indicated that the phenomenon you were encountering was unfamiliar to you and that you had some negative emotional reaction to it, right? So it's like, oh, I don't remember the exact words, but that's what was conveyed.
Mhm.
INFJ has a similar kind of way of remembering things, and like Rachel and I will often remember the meaning. Like, no, I remember we both said, yeah, that show is the best at blah 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 blah, but we can't remember what the fuck show it was we were talking about. You know.
I think that annoys me, people that remember like want specifics in the sense that like I feel like I can never give them what they want because it's like I don't remember the specific. I just know the general impression.
And that's TI third is there's constant frustration in INFJs because they have as an absolute value fairness and they want to be correct and they usually are, but they also recognize that their truths, their larger truths, don't really necessarily TI deductively break down all the way, and that they're subject to critique on those grounds. So it's like they're accustomed to being correct holistically and probably correct deductively, but just not set up function wise to position themselves as such. So they end up being, well, I mean, you're a receiving type. It's like I've done more talking than I would have liked to have done during the course of a session with you. I would like the client to do more talking, but this is how we naturally interact with each other. Like, you know, I say something, you ask a question, I answer the question. It's supposed to be the other way, but the typing at this point, you know, it's like it's pretty clear that you're an INFJ. I don't have any doubts about it.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. It was a fun session. Are you okay with me publishing this video?
Yeah, of course.
All right, great. Thanks.